Good day, everyone. I'm Ermela B. OTLANG, and together with my partner, Ms. May Arcenal, we are delighted to present our topic, Introduction to Special Education, its definition and its historical, philosophical, psychological, pedagogical, and legal foundations, which is a core component of our course, SPED 601, Introduction to Special and Inclusive Education. In this topic, we will not only establish a clear definition of special education, but also embark on an essential journey to trace its five critical foundations.
Good day, everyone. I'm Jeremy the Arsenal. I'm pleased to introduce myself and discuss our topic today. Our ultimate goal is to understand how these interconnected foundations collectively shape inclusive practices and ensure that teachers and schools provide equitable learning opportunities for all learners, particularly those with special needs. We hope these presentations deepens your appreciation for the necessity and complexity of inclusive education.
Good day once again. I will discuss special education, starting with its definition. Understanding what SPED truly means is important because it helps us to see how education adapts to meet the unique needs of every learner. What is special education? Special education, also known as special needs education, aided education, exceptional education, special ed, or SPED, is a broad term that describes a wide variety of instructional services that are based on a child's individual needs. It is specifically designed to meet the unique needs of students who have disabilities or exceptional abilities, needs that cannot be fully addressed within the standard general education curriculum alone. It is an act of making education equitable. What is the ultimate goal of this customized instruction? SPAD has a clear twofold goal. Number one is to achieve academic progress. The immediate goal is to provide specially designed instruction, related services, and support, all typically provided at no cost to parents to ensure that students make progress in school and masters the curriculum. Number two is life readiness. The long term goal is to help these students achieve their maximum potential and lead a productive and self reliant lives as fully integrated members of the communities. It's all about preparing them for the life beyond the classroom. The instruction is tailored, the services are supported, and the outcome is independence. To ensure this level of support is effective and just, SPED is built on the five key foundations that guide our inclusive practices. Number one is the historical foundation. This reminds us of the long struggle from exclusion to legal rights, showing why access to education is a right and not a privilege. Number two is the philosophical foundation. This asserts our core belief in the dignity, worth, and educability of every single child. Number three is the psychological foundation. This gives us the tools derived from the theories like developmental psychology and behaviorism to understand how students learn and why they behave the way they do. Number four is the pedagogical foundation. This dictates how we teach, focusing on evidence based practices like the differentiated instruction, the universal design for learning, and the assistive technology. And number five is the legal foundation. This provides the mandates like the laws, the Magna Carta for the disabled person that guarantees equitable access, participation, and support for all the learners. These five foundations work together to ensure that every learner receives the specialized attention and instruction they need to succeed. In essence, special education is a commitment a commitment to equity, individual potential, and full community integration. It ensures that no learner is left behind due to their unique needs. Up next is Mom May Arsenal to talk about the historical foundations of special education.
Thank you, Mom Romela. Good morning, everyone. The history of special education is really the story of how society's view of disability has changed. From exclusion to inclusion, it's a journey led not only by governments but also by pioneers, teachers, parents, and advocates who believe that every child deserves to learn. Before the 18th century, children with disabilities were often seen as uneducable. We can trace this development through three major phases. Phase 1. The pioneers and the age of enlightenment. They were usually kept at home or placed in institutions with little opportunity to learn. Then came the age of enlightenment, when new thinkers began to say that all people have the ability to learn. They just need the right support. This period gave rise to pioneers who changed everything. In France, Charles Michel de Lippi showed that deaf students could be educated using sign language. And then Valentin Hoy opened the first school for the blind, which later inspired the creation of Braille. In the United States, these ideas lead to the first special schools like the American School for the Deaf and the Perkins School for the Blind in the early 1800s. However, during this time, education was based on the medical model, meaning the problem was seen as being within the child. The goal was fix the disability rather than the change in environment. Phase 2. Institutionalization and exclusion. Unfortunately, progress slowed down in the late 1800s and 1900s. Many special institutions became overcrowded and neglectful. The idea spread that people with disabilities should be kept separate from society. The harmful eugenics movement made things worse by suggesting that people with disabilities were unfit, leading to even more exclusion. During this period, public schools often refused to admit children with disabilities, claiming they were too weak-minded to learn. This was an era marked by segregation, discrimination, and lost opportunities. Phase 3. The Civil Rights Era and the Legal Mandates. Real change came in the 1950s and 60s, inspired by the Civil Rights Movement. Parents and advocates started fighting in court, arguing that denying education because of disabilities was a form of discrimination. The turning point came with the 1954 case Brown v. Board of Education, which ended racial segregation in schools. Advocates used in this case to argue that children with disabilities also deserves equal access to education. This led to major victories in the 1970s, and in 1975, the U.S. government passed a landmark law, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, later renamed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. IDEA introduced the 6K principles that guide special education today, including free and appropriate public education, or PAFE, least restrictive environment, or LRE, and the Individualized Education Program, or IEP. This marks a shift to the social model of disability, which sees the problem not as the child's condition, but as the barriers in the environment that limit their participation. Our role as educators, then, is to remove those barriers so every student can succeed. To summarize, the history of special education moved through three stages. from recognizing a few learners to excluding many and finally to ensuring education for all. Today, this foundation reminds us that inclusion is right, not a privilege, and our duty is to provide every student with the support, access, and respect they need to reach their full potential. Let's hear from Ma'am Romela, the Philosophical Foundation of Special Education.
Thank you, Ma'am Jerna May. Have you ever wondered why we teach students with disabilities? The answer lies in philosophy. The philosophical foundation of special education guide us to see learners not just labels, but as human beings with potential, dignity, and the right to learn. Now let's talk about the philosophical foundation of special education, specifically the beliefs in human rights, social justice, constructivism, and inclusive education, and how these shape the way we teach. Let's start with human rights philosophy. This philosophy reminds us that education is a fundamental right, not a privilege. Every learner, regardless of ability, has the right to quality education, respect, and equal opportunities to grow. John Locke advocated natural rights and the inherent worth of every person. Jean-Jacques Rousseau promoted the idea that education should respect natural rights and potentials of every child. In the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, it affirmed that education is a fundamental human right, while UNESCO and UNICEF promote global frameworks ensuring education for all children, including those with disability. As teachers, this means making sure that no child is left behind and that every student feel valued and accepted in our classroom. Next is social justice philosophy. This focuses on fairness and equality. It calls on educators to challenge discrimination, remove learning barriers, and give all students the support they need to succeed. What are its main components and influencers? Number one is John Rawls. In a theory of justice, which emphasizes fairness and equality as the basis of a just society. Paulo Freire advocated for education as a means of empowerment and liberation for marginalized groups. Nancy Fraser focused on recognition and redistribution as dual aspects for social justice. In connection to SPED, it promotes fair access to opportunities, challenge discrimination, and support inclusive classrooms where all learners have equitable chances to succeed. In practice, this means providing accommodations and modifications when necessary, and creating a classroom where every student has a fair chance to learn and participate. The third one is constructivism. Constructivism tells us that students learn best through experience and interaction. Instead, this means recognizing that each learner has their own way of understanding and expressing knowledge. Who are the main proponents and influencers of this philosophy? First, we have Jean Piaget. He proposed that learners construct knowledge through active interaction with the environment, or the cognitive constructivism. We also have Lev Vygotsky, who introduced the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD, and emphasized the role of social interaction in learning, which is social constructivism. And we have Jerome Bruner, who highlighted discovery learning and scaffolding in education. As teachers, we design hands on, meaningful, and differentiated activities so that students actively build their learning based on their abilities and interests. Lastly, we have the inclusive education philosophy. This philosophy sees diversity as a strength and not a problem. It promotes the idea that all learners, whether with or without disabilities, should learn together in the same classroom. UNESCO in 1994, through the Salamanca Statement, promoted inclusive education as a global standard, while Lores Malaguzzi, with the Reggio Emilia approach, viewed children as capable, curious learners with an inclusive environment. Wolfensberger, advocated normalization principle, promoting full participation of people with disabilities in society. And Thomas Heyer emphasized removing barriers and focusing on student strength rather than their disabilities. Our role as teachers is to create a welcoming environment where everyone belongs, where differences are celebrated, and where learning is accessible to all. In summary, these four philosophies, the philosophy of human rights, social justice, constructivism, and inclusive education, reminds us that teaching is not just about delivering lessons. It's about valuing diversity, ensuring equity, and building a learning community where all of our students can thrive. Let's listen once again to Ma'am Jeremy to learn about the psychological and pedagogical foundations of special education.
Thank you, Ma'am Romela. As educators, we know our students are diverse. To truly meet their needs, we must understand how they think, learn, and grow. This is where educational psychology comes in. It provides the essential framework for understanding learner needs and developing effective interventions. Let's look at three key psychological foundations that shape our approach to learning. First is behaviorism. So, behaviorism, pioneered by figures like Pavlov and Skinner, focuses on observable behavior and how it's learned through consequences. It teaches us that behavior can be shaped by what happens immediately after it. Its contribution, we learn to use rewards and incentives to encourage positive behaviors and to understand that environmental factors often trigger difficult behaviors. Second is developmental theories. The second foundations look at how students think at different ages. Jean Piaget theory shows us that children progress through distinct cognitive stages. This means a 7-year-old thinks fundamentally differently than a 16-year-old. Its contribution, we must provide instruction that is developmentally appropriate, not too easy, not too hard. Lev Vygotsky introduced the idea of zone of proximal development or ZPD. This is the sweet spot between what a student can do alone and what they can do with help or scaffolding. Its contribution, effective teaching should target this ZPD, providing just enough support for the students to master a new skill. So the third is motivation. Psychology helps us understand that learning isn't just about ability, it's about will. We distinguish between intrinsic motivation, or external rewards like grades or treats, and the more powerful intrinsic motivation, internal satisfaction, curiosity, and interest. Our goal is to foster intrinsic motivation. These theories lead directly to two crucial practices in special education. First is individualized approaches. Because behaviorism and developmental theories emphasize unique needs, we use individualized approaches. This simply means moving beyond one-size-fits-all teaching. The prime example is the Individualized Education Program, or IEP. It is a plan built entirely around one student's unique profile, their strengths, needs, and goals. It ensures our methods align with their specific developmental stage and learning style. Second is positive reinforcement. From behaviorism, we get positive reinforcement. This is the most effective tool for managing and shaping behavior. It's not just praise, but the addition of desirable stimulus, a reward, a privilege, or specific genuine praise immediately following a desired behavior. For example, saying, "I love how you sat down and started your work right away." It's more effective than a general "good job." So, this method focuses on increasing good behavior rather than simply punishing bad behavior, creating a more positive and productive learning environment. In summary, psychological theory isn't just an academic, it's our practice guide. Behaviorism gives us reinforcement tools. And then development theories ensure our instruction is age appropriate and well scaffolded. And the focus on individualization and positive reinforcement ensures we are meeting the unique emotional and academic needs of every student. This time, we'll explore three powerful approaches that form the backbone of modern inclusive education: differentiated instruction or DI, universal design for learning or UDL, and assistive technology or AT. The goal of these strategies is simple yet essential: to make sure every learner, regardless of ability, background, or learning style, can access, participate in, and succeed in the classroom. Let's begin with differentiated instruction or DI. So, think of DI as teaching with flexibility. Instead of expecting all students to learn in the same way, the teacher adapts instruction to meet each learner's unique needs. So, DI focuses on three main areas. First is the content or what students learn. For example, some students may read a simplified version of a text, while others read the full article, both learning the same concepts at their own level. Second is the process or how students learn. So, some may work independently, others in small groups, or through hands-on activities depending on how they learn best. So, third is product or how students show what they learned. Instead of one-size-fits-all test, students can choose to make a poster, deliver a short talk, or create a video. So, in short, DI meets students where they are, helping each learner grow from their own starting point. Next is Universal Design for Learning or UDL. So, if DI adjusts the teaching after seeing students, UDL builds flexibility from the very start. UDL comes from the concept of universal design in architecture, like ramps and automatic doors that benefits everyone, not just those with disabilities. Similarly, UDL removes barriers from all learnings by following three core principles. So the first principle is multiple means of representation or the what of learning. So present information in different ways through visual, audio, hands-on materials, and text. The second core principles of UDL is multiple means of action and expression or the how of learning. So, let students express understanding in diverse ways through writing, speaking, drawing, or using technology. The third is multiple means of engagement or the why of learning. So, keep students motivated by giving them choices, connecting lessons to their interests, and adjusting challenges to keep them engaged. And then UDL ensures that learning is accessible by design, not as an afterthought. Finally, we have assistive technology or AT. So AT means any tool, device, or software that helps students perform tasks they might otherwise find difficult. So AT promotes independence, access, and participation. So there are two types of assistive technology. First is low-tech tools. So low-tech tools includes simple items like pencil grips, slant boards, or colored overlays for reading. The second is high-tech tools. So the high-tech tools includes devices like speech-to-text programs, screen readers, or communication apps. Along with AT, teachers use two kinds of adaptations. First is the accommodation. So, accommodation means adjust how a student learns or is assessed, like extending time or quiet distance space without changing the learning goals. Second is modifications. So, modifications means adjust what a student learns, such as simplifying tasks or reducing the number of test items to better match their ability level. Both ensures that every learner is supported fairly. To wrap up, GI, UDL, and AT are not separate programs. They are interconnected approaches that make inclusion possible. UDL means build the flexible foundation for all learners. DI provides targeted instruction based on student needs, and AT supplies the tools that empower every learner to access and demonstrate learning. Together, these strategies create a classroom where every student can learn, grow, and succeed because inclusion is not just a goal, it's a practice. So, this time, let's listen once again to my partner, Ma'am Romella, to share about the legal foundation of SPED.
Thank you, Ma'am Chername. Every right that learners with disability enjoy today, such as access to education, fair treatment, and inclusion, it all exists because of the law. The legal foundation of special education reminds us that inclusion is not just an act of kindness, it's a matter of justice. At this point, I'll be sharing the legal foundations of special education in the Philippines, how our system evolved from early recognition to full inclusion. The legal journey of special education in the Philippines. Our story begins in 1935 with the Commonwealth Act number 3203, which first recognized the child's right to development, physically, morally, and intellectually. This established the government's duty to care for the children, including those with disability. The first law directed addressing special education came in 1963 through the Republic's Act 3562, promoting education for the blind and training SPED teachers at the Philippine Normal College. Then in 1968, the Republic Act 5250 expanded teachers' training to support learners with various exceptionalities, such as the deaf, those with speech impairments, intellectual disabilities, and the gifted. These early laws built the foundation of recognizing that every child has the right to learn and be developed to their fullest potentials. Next is the era of mandates from 1980s to 1990s. By the 1980s, SPED moved from recognition to rights and access. The Education Act of 1982 guaranteed quality education for all, regardless of condition or background, and required special education services for learners with different needs. The Accessibility Law in 1983 went beyond classrooms, requiring ramps and facilities to improve mobility for persons with disability. Then, the 1987 Constitution solidified education as the right for all, especially emphasizing the responsibility of the state to make education accessible to persons with disabilities. Finally, in 1992, The Magna Carta for Disabled Persons, or the Republic Act 7277, became a major milestone. It promoted rehabilitation, self-reliance, and integration of persons with disabilities into mainstream society. The shift to inclusion from year 2000 to present. Entering the 2000s, the focus shifted from segregation to inclusion. Republic Act 9155 of the Governance of Basic Education Act of 2001 and the global initiatives like Education for All encourage schools to reach diverse learners. In 2009, DepEd Order 72 officially adopted inclusive education as a national strategy, mainstreaming learners with special needs into regular classrooms. Later, the Republic Act 9442 in 2007 strengthened the Magna Carta, and the Republic Act 10533, or the Enhanced Basic Act of 2013, promoted a curriculum responsive to all kinds of learners. Recent efforts like Senate Bill 996 in 2016 and the DepEd Order 21 series of 2019 made inclusion the core principles of the K-12 system, integrating SPED, Indigenous Peoples Education, and Madrasa education under one exclusive framework. From its recognition in the 1930s, the rights and access in the 1980s, and finally, the full inclusion today. The legal foundation of special education in the Philippines reflects a growing belief that every learner, regardless of the ability, deserves equal opportunity, dignity, and belongingness in the classroom. Special education is more than just a program, it's a promise. It's a promise that every learner, regardless of their ability, deserves to be understood, supported, and given the chance to succeed. The five foundations, which is the historical, philosophical, psychological, pedagogical, and legal foundations of special education, reminds us why inclusion matters. Historical, where we started, moving from inclusion to the recognized right. Philosophical, why we do it, the core belief in the dignity and educability of every child. Psychological, how students learn using theories of development and behavior. The pedagogical, how we teach, implementing specialized and effective instructional methods. And legal foundation, what is required, the laws and mandates that guarantee equitable access. As future educators, we may continue to uphold these foundations as we build classrooms where every child feels seen, valued, and capable.
To sum up, we hope this presentation has shown you that special education is far more than just a program. It is a moral commitment to equity, inclusion, and respect for every learner. Its five foundations: historical, philosophical, psychological, pedagogical, and legal, are the pillars that support our vision. They remind us why inclusive education matters, because it upholds the fundamental right of every child to learn, to grow, and to be valued for exactly who they are. I'm Jernamiti Arcenal, and thank you for engaging with our topic.
And I am Romela B. OTLANG, leaving you with this final crucial reminder. As an educator and future SPED educators, we carry the immense responsibility to ensure that every learner experiences not only access to education, but also a genuine sense of belonging in our classrooms. Through truly inclusive practices, we nurture a learning community that is compassionate, empowering, and truly reflective of fairness and humanity. Let's make sure that inclusion is not just a policy, but a practice in every single lesson we teach. Thank you and good day.